You keep entering battles where losing costs you everything and winning costs them nothing, and you wonder why you feel like you're drowning. Let me paint the picture. You've got a reputation. You've got a career. You've got relationships, a name, a standing in the world that took you years to build. And then someone comes along who has none of that. No reputation to protect. No name to defend. No future they're careful about. And you step into the ring with them. You bring your credentials, your logic, your carefully constructed arguments. They bring chaos. They bring recklessness. They bring a willingness to burn everything down, because there's nothing in their world worth preserving. And you lose. Not because they're smarter. Not because they're stronger. But because the stakes were never equal. You were playing chess and they were flipping the board. Here is the truth that will reframe every conflict you've ever been in. The person who has nothing to lose always beats the person who has everything to protect. Not always in the moment, but over time, reliably, mercilessly. Because you flinch and they don't. You calculate and they detonate. You care about the aftermath and they don't even think about it. This is the ruthless art Machiavelli perfected, understanding that power is not about force, it's about position. It's about knowing which battles to enter and which to walk away from before they even begin. And right now, you are walking into the wrong ones. Let me give you 7 principles that will change the way you see every conflict from this moment forward. Not theory. Not philosophy. Survival knowledge. The kind that quietly runs underneath every decision powerful people make, the ones who win without you ever seeing them sweat. Number 1. Never fight someone who has nothing to lose. This sounds simple. It is not. Because your ego will not let you walk away. Your ego says, I'm right. I need to prove it. I need them to know they're wrong. And that need, that hunger to be vindicated, is exactly what makes you vulnerable. You are attaching your identity to the outcome of a fight where the other person has no identity attached at all. Think about who this applies to in your life right now. The coworker who has no ambition and nothing to lose from a confrontation. The ex who has already destroyed their own life and wants to drag you into the wreckage. The online stranger who thrives on chaos while you thrive on order. The relative who has no peace and resents yours. In every one of these cases, the asymmetry is the same. You have something they want, stability, reputation, peace of mind, and they have nothing you want. So why are you fighting? Most people fight because their pride demands it. Strategic people walk away because their future demands it. The cost of fighting someone with nothing to lose is that you risk everything you've built, and even if you win nothing. You've just spent your energy, your composure, your reputation, and your peace on someone who was never worth your attention. That's the quiet tax you've been paying your whole life and you didn't even notice it. Machiavelli understood this at the deepest level. He knew that the worst opponent is not the strongest one, it's the one who has no reason to stop. A person with something to lose can be negotiated with. They can be reasoned with. They have a floor they don't want to fall below. But a person with nothing to lose has no floor. They will go to depths you won't follow them to, and in that gap between your limit and their limitlessness, they will destroy you. So here is your first rule of survival. Before entering any conflict, ask yourself, what does this person stand to lose? If the answer is nothing, you are not in a fight. You are in a trap. Walk away. Your pride will scream. Let it scream. Pride is cheap. What you've built is not. Number 2. Strip away every illusion you've built about the people around you. Here's what you don't want to hear. You are not seeing people clearly. You are seeing the version of them that makes you comfortable. You project competence onto people who are chaotic. You project loyalty onto people who are transactional. You project stability onto people who are unraveling. And then when they act in ways that shock you, you say, "I never saw it coming." Of course you didn't. You were looking at a version of them that doesn't exist. The most dangerous thing in the world is not cruelty. It's self-deception. Because cruelty you can prepare for. Self-deception walks you into the trap with your eyes open and your mind closed. People construct comforting stories about their situation, about their friends, their colleagues, their partners, because the truth is too uncomfortable to sit with. The truth that someone you trust is unreliable. The truth that someone you admire is reckless. The truth that someone you depend on has no foundation beneath them. So you lie to yourself. You tell yourself they'll come through. You tell yourself they're not that kind of person. You tell yourself it won't happen again. And every time you do that, you hand over a piece of your power to someone who doesn't even know they're holding it. The fearless person, and I don't mean reckless, I mean truly fearless, does something most people will never do. They look at reality exactly as it is. No padding. No softening. No story that makes it easier to swallow. They see the person who has nothing to lose and they name it. They see the ally who is actually a liability and they name it. They see the situation that looks stable but is actually rotting underneath and they name it. Because here's what happens when you strip away illusions. You stop being surprised. And when you stop being surprised, you stop being reactive. And when you stop being reactive, you start being strategic. That's the entire chain. It starts with the willingness to see what's actually in front of you instead of what you wish was there. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this, the discipline of seeing things as they are, not as your emotions paint them. He understood that the mind will distort reality to protect itself from discomfort, and that this distortion is the root of every strategic failure. You don't lose because the world is cruel. You lose because you refuse to see the cruelty in time to do something about it. So here is what I want you to do. Think of one person in your life right now, one, who you've been making excuses for. Someone whose behavior you've been rationalizing. Someone you keep telling yourself is going to change, or come through, or be different next time. Now imagine that person never changes. Imagine they are exactly who they've shown you they are. Not who they could be. Not who they promise to be. Who they actually are, right now, based on what they've done, not what they've said. That person is either someone you need to reposition or someone you need to remove. And the moment you see them clearly, the moment you stop projecting your hopes onto their patterns, you will feel something shift inside you. A weight you didn't know you were carrying. That weight was the cognitive cost of maintaining an illusion. And you've been paying it for years. Number 3. This is the one that changes everything. Become the person who has nothing to lose. Here is the paradox at the center of everything I'm telling you. You must avoid fighting people who have nothing to lose, while simultaneously becoming that person yourself. You must stop being a target of the reckless while embodying the fearlessness that makes you untouchable. Now, what does that mean? It doesn't mean torching your life. It doesn't mean burning your relationships and walking away from your responsibilities. It means something far more precise and far more powerful. It means detaching your identity from the things you have so that the things you have don't own you. Here's the thing. You have a reputation. Good. But if you need that reputation, if your sense of self collapses without it, then you don't own your reputation, it owns you. And anyone who threatens it has power over you. You have a position, a title, a role. But if you can't imagine life without it, then you don't hold the position holds you. And anyone who can take it away controls you. The person who has nothing to lose is not the person who has lost everything. It's the person who has everything and is not afraid to lose it. That's the distinction that almost no one understands. Most people think having nothing to lose means being destitute, being desperate, being at the bottom. That's one version. But the more dangerous version, the version that Machiavelli would recognize, is the person who has built something real and has reached a place inside themselves where they are not chained to it. Do you understand the difference? The desperate person with nothing to lose is dangerous because they have nothing to preserve. The strategic person with nothing to lose is dangerous because they have nothing to fear. Same surface behavior, fearlessness, completely different engine underneath. One is driven by emptiness. The other is driven by sovereignty. And here is how you get there. You start by asking yourself, in the most honest moment you can muster, what am I afraid of losing? Name it. Your reputation. Your income. Your relationship. Your image. Your comfort. Whatever it is, name it. And then sit with this question. If I lost it, would I survive? Not would you be happy. Not would it be convenient. Would you survive? Would you rebuild? Would you find a way forward? The answer is yes. It is always yes. You have survived every loss you've ever experienced up to this point. You will survive the next one. And the moment you truly internalize that, not as a slogan, not as a motivational platitude, but as a felt, embodied truth, you become the most dangerous version of yourself. Not dangerous to others. Dangerous to anyone who tries to control you. Because you just removed every lever they could pull. Think about it. How do you control a person? You find what they're afraid of losing and you threaten it. That's it. That's the entire mechanism of control. Every manipulation, every coercion, every power play in human history comes down to finding someone's attachment and exploiting it. And the moment you don't have an attachment that can be exploited, you become uncontrollable. You become the person others are afraid to fight. Not because you're violent. Not because you're cruel. Because they have nothing to hold over you. This is what it means to walk alone. Not that you have no people, but that your power does not depend on them. Not that you own nothing, but that nothing owns you. There's a stoic stillness underneath this that most people will never touch. It's the quiet of someone who has already faced the worst-case scenario in their own mind and found it survivable. That person does not flinch. That person does not negotiate from fear. That person walks through the world with a kind of gravity that others can feel but can't explain. And here is what that gravity does. It repels the people who were counting on your fear. It attracts the people who respect strength. And it makes the people with nothing to lose suddenly very cautious about engaging with you, because they recognize something in you that they don't see in others. They recognize that you are not playing their game. You are not reacting to their chaos. You are operating on a different level entirely. Number 4. Know when to be the bad guy. This is where most people who are listening to this will resist. Because you've been trained your entire life to be good. To be nice. To be accommodating. To be the person who smooths things over, who gives the benefit of the doubt, who takes the high road. And I'm telling you that this training is not virtue. It's a leash. Niceness is not always kindness. Sometimes niceness is cowardice wearing a moral costume. Sometimes the nice thing to do is also the weak thing to do, and weakness in the face of exploitation is not noble, it's complicity in your own destruction. There are moments when the right move is calculated aggression. When the correct response to someone testing your boundaries is not to explain, not to negotiate, not to appeal to their better nature, but to demonstrate, clearly and without apology, that there is a cost to crossing you. Now, let me be precise about what I mean. I'm not talking about cruelty. I'm not talking about gratuitous meanness. I'm talking about strategic aggression, the willingness to be the person who says no when everyone expects you to say yes. The willingness to withdraw access, withdraw warmth, withdraw cooperation from someone who has been taking it for granted. The willingness to let someone experience the consequences of their actions without rushing in to soften the blow. In the world Machiavelli described, people respect strength and exploit perceived weakness. This is not a moral judgment, it's an observation about how power actually works, not how we wish it worked. And if you are always accommodating, always patient, always willing to give one more chance, you are not being generous. You are broadcasting a signal that says, I can be taken from without consequence. And the people who have nothing to lose are the first ones to pick up that signal. So here is the principle. Know when to be bad. Know when to be the one who doesn't smile. Know when to be the one who doesn't explain. Know when to be the one who lets the silence hang in the air while the other person squirms. Calculated aggression is not losing your temper, it's the opposite. It's maintaining absolute composure while making it clear that a line has been crossed and there will be a price. Most people are afraid of being disliked. Strategic people are afraid of being disrespected, because being disliked is temporary but being disrespected is structural. Once someone decides you're soft, they will never stop testing. Once someone concludes you won't push back, every interaction going forward will be shaped by that conclusion. And you will spend years trying to undo what one moment of excessive niceness created. Here's a quotable truth for you. Being liked is not being respected. Write that down. Screenshot it. Tattoo it on your decision-making. The person who is liked but not respected is a puppet. The person who is respected but not liked is a force. And in the world of power, which is the world you actually live in, whether you acknowledge it or not, force is what holds the line. Number 5. Never underestimate anyone. This is the mistake that has destroyed more people than any other strategic error in history. Not stupidity. Not weakness. Overconfidence. The assumption that you're smarter, more prepared, more capable than the person across from you. Here is what overconfidence does. It makes you lazy. It makes you skip the work of understanding your opponent. It makes you enter conflicts with incomplete information and a false sense of security. And by the time you realize you misjudged them, you're already in the wreckage. The person you dismissed as unintelligent may be operating on a kind of cunning that your education doesn't recognize. The person you wrote off as weak may have a pain tolerance you can't imagine. The person you assumed was harmless may have been gathering information on you for months while you were busy feeling superior. Rule: always assume your opponent is intelligent, adaptable, and dangerous. Even when they appear weak. Especially when they appear weak. Because the appearance of weakness is either genuine, in which case you'll find out soon enough and lose nothing by being prepared, or it's a performance, in which case your underestimation is exactly what they're counting on. Machiavelli wrote about this. He observed that the most dangerous enemies are not the ones who announce their strength, it's the ones who conceal it. The ones who let you walk into their trap with your confidence high and your guard low. He understood that power is not just about what you can do to others, it's about what others can do to you when you're not paying attention. Here is how this connects to the central principle. The person who has nothing to lose often appears to have nothing to offer. They look disorganized. They look unstable. They look like they're barely holding it together. And you look at them and think, this person is not a threat. But that's the illusion. The person who has nothing to lose is always a threat, not because of what they have, but because of what they're willing to sacrifice. They don't need resources to hurt you. They need only recklessness. And recklessness is the one thing you cannot defend against with logic, credentials, or social capital. So the next time you find yourself looking at someone and thinking, I'm smarter than them, I can handle this, I can win this, stop. Ask yourself, what do they have to lose? What am I assuming about their limits? And what happens if I'm wrong about every single one of those assumptions? The cost of underestimating is always higher than the cost of over-preparing. Always. Because over-preparing costs you time and energy. Underestimating costs you everything. Number 6. The best victory is the one that requires no battle at all. This is the highest level of strategic thinking, and it's where everything I've been telling you converges. The supreme art is not winning fights. It's arranging the world so that the fight never happens. Think about what fighting costs you. Even when you win, you lose. You lose time. You lose energy. You lose pieces of your reputation that get chipped away in the conflict. You lose the mental space that you need for the things that actually matter. And if you're fighting someone with nothing to lose, even your victory is hollow, because you spent real resources defeating someone who had none to begin with. You traded your gold for their gravel and called it a win. The strategic mind operates differently. Instead of asking, how do I win this fight, it asks, how do I make this fight unnecessary? And the answer is always the same. Positioning. Deterrence. The architecture of your life arranged so that people look at you and decide, on their own, that engaging with you is not worth it. This is what Machiavelli meant when he talked about the appearance of power being as important as power itself. You don't need to fight everyone who threatens you. You need to be the kind of person that threats bounce off of. You need to build a life where the people who might challenge you take one look and decide to look elsewhere. How do you do this? Through what I call strategic silence, the practice of not responding to provocations that are designed to pull you into a fight you don't need. Through what I call strategic distance, the practice of not making yourself accessible to people who have proven they will use access as a weapon. Through what I call strategic opacity, the practice of not showing your hand, your plans, your vulnerabilities to people who have not earned the right to see them. Most people respond to every provocation. Strategic people let provocations hang in the air unanswered until they lose their power. Most people explain themselves when challenged. Strategic people let silence do the explaining. Most people feel the need to win every argument. Strategic people understand that some arguments are bait and the only winning move is to not engage. Here's the thing. When you don't respond to someone who is trying to provoke you, two things happen. First, you preserve your energy and your composure, which are your most valuable strategic assets. Second, you send a signal. You signal that their tactics don't work on you. You signal that you operate on a level where their provocations are irrelevant. And that signal, that silent, devastating signal, is more powerful than any argument you could have made. Because arguments can be debated. Silence can't. The person who has nothing to lose wants a reaction from you. That's what they're after. Not a logical resolution. Not a fair outcome. A reaction. They want to see you lose your composure. They want to see you spend your energy. They want to pull you down into the mud where they live. And the moment you give them that reaction, you've given them exactly what they wanted, and you've paid for it with the things they could never afford. So don't. Let them rage. Let them perform. Let them show everyone around you exactly who they are while you remain perfectly still. That stillness is not passivity. It is the most aggressive form of dominance, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself. Number 7. If you must fight, end it completely. There is a time to walk away and there is a time to fight. And the difference between the two is the most important judgment call you will ever make. But if you've assessed the situation, if you've determined that the person across from you does have something to lose, that the stakes are real, that the conflict is unavoidable, and that walking away would cost you more than engaging, then you fight. And when you fight to end it. Not to win the argument. Not to make your point. Not to feel vindicated. To end it. Completely. Decisively. In a way that leaves no room for a sequel. Here is the mistake almost everyone makes. They fight just hard enough to gain an advantage and then they stop. They let the other person retreat. They allow a partial defeat. They feel merciful. They feel like they've been the bigger person. And then 6 months later, 18 months later, 3 years later, that person comes back. Recovered. Rearmed. Angry. And now they know your patterns. They know your weaknesses. They know exactly how you fight and where you're vulnerable. A wounded enemy is more dangerous than one who was never engaged. Because the wounded enemy has information and motivation. They've studied you. They've spent their recovery time planning. And they come back with a precision that the original conflict never had. If you leave even one ember smoldering, a fire will eventually erupt. This is not paranoia. This is pattern recognition. Every conflict you've ever had that came back around, every person you thought you dealt with who resurfaced, every situation you thought was resolved that flared up again, it came back because you didn't end it the first time. You stopped early. You showed mercy to someone who was never going to show mercy to you. You left the door open a crack and they walked back through it. So here is the principle. If you must fight, crush the conflict so thoroughly that the other person has no appetite for a rematch. This doesn't mean destroying them as a person. It means destroying their capacity and motivation to come back at you. It means making the cost of re-engagement so clearly, so unambiguously high that they do the math themselves and conclude it's not worth it. This requires something most people don't have. It requires the willingness to be decisive when decisiveness looks harsh. The willingness to be final when finality looks cold. The willingness to prioritize your future over the comfort of feeling like you were reasonable. Marcus Aurelius would have understood this. He wrote about the importance of doing what is necessary without being corrupted by it. You can be decisive without being cruel. You can be final without being vindictive. But you cannot be effective while being soft. The world does not reward softness. It rewards clarity. And here is the deepest layer of this principle. When you fight to end something completely, you're not just defeating the other person. You're defeating the pattern. You're defeating the part of yourself that has been tolerating half-resolutions and recurring conflicts and the slow drain of unresolved situations that nibble at your energy like rats in the walls. You're declaring, to yourself and to the world, that your mental space is not a democracy. It is a sovereign territory. And anything that enters without permission will be dealt with absolutely. Now let me bring all of this together because the 7 principles are not separate ideas. They are one idea expressed in 7 dimensions. The idea is this. Power is not about what you can do to others. It is about what others cannot do to you. And the foundation of that power is the asymmetry of stakes. When you have nothing to lose, not because you've lost everything, but because you've released your attachment to everything, you become untouchable. And when you understand that the people who threaten you are the ones who also have nothing to lose, but in the desperate, reckless, destructive sense, you stop engaging with them entirely. You stop fighting battles where losing costs you everything and winning costs them nothing. You stop walking into traps designed by people who have no floor. You stop projecting strength onto people who are actually chaos. You stop underestimating people who have nothing but cunning and nothing but pain. You stop being nice when niceness is a leash. You stop leaving embers that will become fires. And you start, finally, for the first time in your life, operating from a position of genuine power. Not the power of aggression. Not the power of domination. The power of someone who has looked at the board, understood the stakes, and made a decision about where to place themselves that no one else has to understand. Let me bring you back to where we started. You keep entering battles where losing costs you everything and winning costs them nothing, and you wonder why you feel like you're drowning. Now you know why. Now you know the mechanism. And knowing the mechanism is the beginning of freedom from it. But knowing is not enough. You have to act. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel ready. Not when the situation is more convenient. Right now. Today. In the next conversation you have, in the next provocation you receive, in the next moment someone tries to pull you into a fight where the stakes are not equal, you apply what you know. You walk away from the ones that don't matter. You end the ones that do, completely. You strip away the illusions you've been carrying about people who don't deserve them. You stop being nice when nice is a liability. And you begin the internal work of becoming the person who has nothing to lose, not by destroying what you have, but by releasing your fear of losing it. This is the ruthless art Machiavelli perfected. The understanding that the person who fears loss is already lost, and the person who has made peace with loss has already won. Now it is yours. So here is what I want you to do right now. Not in a minute. Not after you think about it. Right now. Go to the comments and write these 4 words. I am untouchable. Not because it's a mantra. Not because it's motivation. Because it is a declaration. A declaration that you are done fighting battles where the stakes are rigged against you. A declaration that you see the game now. And a declaration that from this moment forward, you are the one who chooses when to engage, how to engage, and whether to engage at all. The person who has nothing to lose and knows it is the most dangerous person in any room. Be that person. Not tomorrow. Right now. I am untouchable. Write it. Mean it. Become it.